Do not move to Arizona. That's going to be the title of this video. And before you ask, I'm going to pull up a little bit of statistics. But if you really want that kind of information, this is not the video for that. Okay? Research it yourself, ultimately. If you are curious about statistics or rent increases or who owns what, I'm going to be glossing over that stuff. A lot of this is going to be my personal experiences. But that being said, Arizona's a shithole. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And I'm not talking about just the weather, okay? I'm not talking about the weather. I am talking about at a fundamental political, economic, population level, this state fucking sucks. And for the only reason you should be living in Arizona is if you grew up here or you have family here that you can like leech off of. But if you are a single guy or if you're trying to get married to somebody and build a family, this is not the fucking state to be. Do not fucking be here. If you're thinking my boy Charlie Kirk was here, first off, he's your boy, that's crazy. But if you're thinking that this is like some, because people look at Texas, everyone's got a video on Texas now talking about the H-1Bs, the housing prices, the taxes. It's not really this Second Amendment state anymore. It's full of liberals and like cringy people now, and so many immigrants, and so everyone's looking for this state to escape to. And I was the same way, right? Because I grew up, a little bit about me, I was born and raised in Southern California, a place called San Jacinto, or Hemet. That's a more famous one that's right next to me, which is in Riverside County. Okay, although it's like in between Riverside and Palm Springs, kind of. It's not really Riverside County. It's like the edge of it. This was a shithole. A total ghetto shithole. And it wasn't always like that. For like the first 7 years of my existence, I did grow up in a trailer park, and then my grandfather bought my mom a house, which was so amazing of him to do. So I got to live up in grow up in a tract home up until I was like 15. And the neighborhood just completely deteriorated. And anyone will tell you around that time, the 2008 housing crisis and all of that, they started building all these tract homes and just completely depreciating the value of my tract home that I lived in. And it just, everyone who lived around me was illegal Mexicans, or it was like black people. I was the only white guy pretty much in my town. There was like, at my high school and at my middle school, it was like 7% white people in this town I grew up. It was predominantly non-white. So I grew up completely diverse, all right? And I never got bullied or nothing by black people. Most of my friends growing up were Mexican. So that's just a little bit about my background. I grew up in California, okay? And I tried for a while, up until I want to say I was about 22 or 23, to make it in California. And I couldn't make it, right? I ended up graduating from a community college, Mount San Jacinto College. It took me 4 years to graduate because I'm a retard and I also didn't go to school properly. And I was also losing my house every 9 months. That's the story of my life. And, once I graduated, I said, I got to get the fuck out of California. And anybody who lives in California who's broke will say that at some point. Like, we got to get the fuck out of here, right? It's not just white people. It's everybody says that. If you live in California, you're like, fuck, I got to get out of here, dude. Everything is fucked. It's over. Everyone who lives in California does that. It'll happen. Even if they don't move, they all talk about it. And Californians love to talk about going to Texas because they're like, oh, I can own, if you're like a little right-leaning, you talk about Texas. Maybe if you're like left-leaning, you'll talk about like Minnesota, or you'll talk about, you know, one of these other, like, more liberal states, like maybe like Ohio or something, right? But, you know, point being, everyone talks about leaving California. And a lot of the right-leaning dudes, or, you know, if you're freedom or, like, independent mindset, if you know, are, like, a little patriotic, right? You're like, I want to go to Texas. And then you learn about Texas, and you're like, fuck, Texas is gay. Texas has mad H-1Bs, like, these corporations own everything. They're like, you can't criticize Israel. Ted Cruz is a fucking cuck. Like, these people, like, suck. And, you know, the Rogan sphere is there, and these guys are like, I mean, come on. They live in Austin. It's, like, hyper-liberal. There's some good areas of Texas, don't get me wrong. And, like, if you look at any big city, they're always going to be liberal and gay. But the state overall has been, like, declining. And everyone knows that. There's a million videos on Texas. No one's ever talking about how shitty fucking Arizona is. The only time I hear people talk about Arizona, it's always like, it's hot as hell, bro. That's the devil's ass crack. I'm sorry, bro. If that's the best thing you have to say, you haven't lived here. And all I can say is I've spent, I think, a total of, and I might be getting this number a little off, around 5 years, okay? I spent a year in Tucson, and then about a year in Phoenix, and then I've come back and I've been here about 3 years now, almost. In December, it'll be 3 years, in Mesa. And I literally, initially, when I moved from California after graduating to go to Tucson, I did that so I could attend U of A, which I ended up not doing because it was way too expensive, right? $9,000 for 5 credits. $9,000 for 5 credits, okay? And that was back in 2019, 2020, right? I think I was trying to attend January 2020, and it was like $9,000, or yeah, $9K for 5 credits, right? So I moved there to attend that school. And at the time, the apartment I rented, I was like blowing loads in my jeans. I was like, dude, my rent is $820 a month. Oh! I went from California, I'm paying $1,250 for a single bedroom. I got a single bedroom, albeit on the second floor, right down the road from the college. It was on like Campbell Avenue, and it was in like northern Tucson, which is the area that none of the illegals live. It's all old white people and college kids. So that's where everyone wants to live. If you live in like the northeast of Tucson, it's actually really nice. But if you live in the southwest, that's the part everyone fucking hates. So that's just a little bit about Tucson for you. But I lived in like a decent, like not the best, but it was a very decent part of Tucson, okay? So I paid a premium. I didn't even know, because when I worked at Amazon there, I had somebody tell me, you're paying $820, you retard? I only pay $600 a month for my rent. I'm like, okay, where do you live? And they're like, way down southwest in like the shittiest neighborhood. I'm like, yeah, that's why you're paying $600. That same apartment, let's look it up real quick. I'm gonna look it up. It's called Fox Point Apartments, Tucson. Okay, and you can look this up. You can see exactly where I used to live. They have a website, foxpointapts.com. And I remind you, I was paying $820, and that included my water. So the only thing additional on top of that was like, I believe, electricity and internet. So it was about like $1,000 a month that I paid total. But we're just looking at rent prices. So I was paying $820 for a single bedroom. Let's go to floor plans. Let's see if they'll even show you. Nowadays, they don't even want to show you. See the plan that I used to live in. Right here, $899. Starting. Estimate your costs. Okay, so like with all these apartments, they don't show you all the costs at first. Second off, to apply is $260 now. That's insane. So with this one, they're not including the water. So you gotta assume the water in the trash is gonna be another $100. So, like, because I signed on, it was like $750, and then it was like $820 after that. So if this is $900, oh, never mind, I lied. Is this the actual? This might even be the unit I lived in. 13. Oh no, I was at a different one. But so you click on it. First off, it shows you on the website starting at $899. When you click on it, it says $989, and that's not including your utility. Okay. So it's gonna be about $1,100. That's what you're really looking at. And I'm not talking about electricity. I'm talking about just the water and sewage and trash that's always included with your rent bill with places like this. So mine was $820 with all that. This is gonna be like $1,100 with all that. So it's gone up $300, which if you think about that, that's like a 30% increase, almost like 20-something% increase. And I lived there in 2020. So when you think about that, like almost a 30% increase, you see that everywhere. Here's the next place we're going to look up. I'm going to go to... I think they changed the name of it. I don't know if I'll be able to find it. I might have to skip over this one. Yeah, I might have to skip over this one. Anyway, I lived at this place on McDowell, off of like 75th and McDowell. Okay, somebody can probably look this up. I was paying $1,000 a month for a bedroom unit, and this had in-unit washer and dryer. So everyone, if you haven't paid for apartments before, your unit is always going to be more expensive if you have in-unit washer and dryer. It's always going to be more expensive, without a doubt. So I had all of that, and this is not a very great neighborhood. This is like you drive down McDowell. This is Central Phoenix. You drive down McDowell, right in front of my apartment, it was just homeless encampments, tents, Fent, everywhere. Shithole neighborhood. It was like $1,000 a month. I guarantee you that shit is not $1,000 anymore. It's probably like $1,500 a month now. I would bet. It's probably around $1,400 or $1,500 a month for a one-bedroom apartment there. But we don't have to look at just rent, right? Because a lot of people who move into a state, they want to buy a home, okay? When I was looking into coming back to Phoenix, because what I did was I started up at Amazon so I could attend U of A, and so I was doing this horrible night shift at Amazon back in 2019, and I was in Tucson, and I was at this building that just opened, and I was there for about like 9 months, and I said, man, this is the gay shit. I was like, I miss my friends and family back in California. So I made the unbelievably bad mistake of moving back to California. And I went back to Hemet, and I paid $1,400 a month in rent, and I did that for about like 9 months. But I lived with my sister for like 3 or 4 months, and then I got the apartment, and then I was there for like 4 or 5 months. And I attended Cal State San Bernardino for I took one class, and then I left. But I went back to Hemet, and then I realized all my friends are fucking shit. Almost all of them were. And I lost almost all my friendships somehow just by moving out of state. And my family sucks. And yeah, it ended horribly. But I go back, and it's hell expensive. And so at this point, I'm looking, and I promoted, by the way, at Amazon. I promoted into a role called Learning Trainer. Then I'm moving back to Phoenix. I'm looking back, I'm like, I gotta go back to Arizona. And you know, at this point, I'm like, I'm gonna try to get promoted into a learning coordinator, which will pay like 23 something an hour, which for Arizona, that's still really good for Arizona. But back then it was better. Back in 2020, 2021, whatever it was. And they were opening this building, I got promoted, and I moved back to Phoenix. When I was looking at these houses, like this is like around the start of COVID, okay? These houses in Phoenix were like $250 to $275, okay? In Tucson, they were around $230. These same houses now, the cheapest in Tucson, for what I was looking at, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in South Tucson, the shithole area of Tucson, which used to be $225, $185 to $225 just 5 years ago. 5 years, the cheapest in this shithole neighborhood is $290,000. It's gone up 60, anywhere from 100, from 60 to 100,000. Again, like a 30%. We're looking at like, I don't know the exact number. Some math guy might be able to tell you. You're looking at like a 30%, like a third, 30% higher on all real estate. Something else you got to understand, which is really important. I wanted to talk about the real estate prices before I talk about more of the crux of the issue here about Arizona. And this is something you can look up, and it's real. The same motherfucking people own everything in this state. And maybe this is the case for just America, right? But in Arizona, provably, any house with an HOA neighborhood is owned by Blackstone. They actually own all of the real estate here. They own everything. They own the financial real estate. They own, like, if you're trying to start up a business and you're renting a piece out of the lot, you know who you're renting it from? A subsidiary or some offshoot company that is owned by Blackstone. Every single apartment complex in this area, and this is sickening. I'm gonna have to find the link and I'll post it in the video. I'll probably I'll put a picture up here or something like that when I edit this video. You can look up the people who own the apartment I'm living in right now, which I'm just gonna fucking dox myself. I don't care. I live in an apartment called The Vance in Mesa, Arizona. It's called The Vance. It used to be called like Tides at Mesa. Okay? And so they have a lot of apartments that are called Tides at whatever. Tides at Fox Point. Tides at whatever. And now it's called The Vance. Like JD Vance, I guess? I don't know who the fuck came up with that name. But this apartment complex and every fucking other apartment complex in Mesa, in Phoenix, in Queens Creek, in fucking Tempe, they are all owned by the same group. Every single apartment. And there is no rent control here. So they can charge you whatever the fuck they want. And every place here, my rent last year went up $150 a month. And I signed a longer lease. Had I signed the same amount of lease that I had when I first got here, like a 9-month lease, it would have been like $500 a month increase. And the monthly is like $2,400 a month. So for anybody who's sitting here and they're thinking, I'm going to get out of my shithole state and I'm going to go to a real American state like Arizona, you got another thing fucking coming. If you think coming to this state is going to let you escape the shit, this place fucking sucks. Because on top of the things everyone normally complains about, the weather, it's sunny all day, your car paint will get ruined, you'll get rocks thrown at your fucking car on the freeway because it's just, everything is rocks. There's scorpions in my fucking house. I have scorpions. It's disgusting, right? Like, the environment is literally inhospitable to humanity, okay? But you think that the trade-off for that is that there's opportunity, right? You think you have freedoms, you can be individual, you can be patriotic in this state. All of that is wrong. That's the point of this video. And the first thing I tackled is just the bare minimum level of it, the real estate. It is unaffordable to live in this state. Completely unaffordable. The only way you can afford to live in this state is if you're sharing rooms with other people, you're leeching off of a family member, or you're rich. If you're making like $150,000 a year, then you can go live in Gilbert. You can go live in Scottsdale. Otherwise, you're on welfare. You're broke. You're living in hobble and a shithole. And you're living in a crime-infested neighborhood, like me. You're living in shit. And that's just the bare minimum. So that's real estate. Before I even get into politics, before I even get into immigration or anything like that, let's talk about the next most important factor, because it has to do with your finances. Let's talk about the job market. That's a big selling point for Arizona. You might believe this, right? You might believe there's so much opportunity in Arizona. Because where are all the silicone manufacturing plants being opened? They're being opened out here. They're being opened in, like, technically Mesa, but like Queens Creek. They're being opened in Tempe. All these corporate offices get opened in Tempe. All these warehouses get opened around Phoenix, and you know, it is a hub, right? Because these big and these AI data centers are getting built here, even though nobody fucking wants them anywhere. Let me take a sip of this. Hold on. Protein shake. By the way, since my previous video, I've lost 34 pounds. So I'm doing good on the physical health. Mental health, not so much. Anyway, back to what I was talking about, the job market. Okay? You may think there's all this opportunity because all these businesses use Arizona as like a translogistics hub. They have like cross docks here. You know, it's a halfway point between California. That's where all the business actually gets done, is California. But like Arizona's like between California and Texas somehow. You know, this is like where they go. That being said, there's no fucking jobs here. And what do I mean by that? Because if you go on Indeed and you look at these jobs, really look at them, you're going to see jobs for like aviation manufacturing, tech manufacturing, warehouse work, forklift experience required, all this kind of shit, right? You'll see that, which you think is entry level. I'll talk about that in a minute. It's not actually entry level, okay? But you have these like entry level grunt labor positions, and then you have on the other end of the spectrum way high up management. There's no in between. If you're somebody like me who unfortunately spec'd into fucking middle management, you're fucked here, because they don't want to hire you for entry level. This is what I've been facing for the past year and a half, where I've had to like go back to Amazon and work seasonal so I can make ends meet. Even though I used to be a manager there, I have to go back as a grunt. For people like me who did middle management, there's no jobs for you, because the people who are in those positions can't leave them. And why can't they leave them? Because there's no jobs for them to leave to. So if you do any kind of like operations manager, if your role sounded like operations coach, area manager, anything like that, you know, supervisor, you're not getting a fucking job, okay? There's no jobs for you here under any of those fields. They're so competitive. I've done interviews for 2 years, okay? And maybe I just suck and I'm not the test for everything because I'm this hyper conservative whatever piece of shit, no one likes me, whatever, right? And maybe I could blame it on H-1Bs. Whatever. Maybe I'm just the problem. Sorry, I was playing with this USB. I shouldn't be playing with it. It's making noise. Anyway. Maybe I'm the problem. But maybe these jobs are just hyper competitive because there's no openings. You know? The best you can get is... And first off, the jobs here don't tell you how much they pay. And they pay nothing. I was talking with a recruiter for Starbucks for a store manager spot. Okay? This is like somebody running the Starbucks, and I don't give a shit about coffee, right? But I was just like, I'm so desperate for a job, I'll apply for fucking Starbucks. I talked with the recruiter, who was not very nice to me over the phone. Female recruiter, you're not getting a job. That's a fact, by the way. Rule of life. If you're a man and you're talking to a female sourcing recruiter, you might as well just hang up. Anyway, talked with her, And she said, you know, what's your pay expectation? And I said, okay, well, I saw that the pay cap for the role was like 82, so I'd say probably like 75. Reasonable, right? Because you assume it's like in the middle. She's like, well, we actually have a pay range of 50,000 to 82,000, and we'd only be looking to give you like 52. I'm like, you want me to run a business that brings in, according to you, $1 to $3 million a year, and you want to pay me $50,000 to do 80 plus hours a week running this business? That's Arizona for you. But the job market's terrible. So if you're looking for jobs like that, you're not going to find them. So everything here is like, they want legal consultants, they want tech wizards. So if you're like a programmer or like this AI guy, or you know how to work on computer hardware, there's jobs for you. But if you don't know that shit, then basic laborer is the only other job left. Or like part-time fast food worker or part-time retail worker. That's it. Full-time work, warehouse, that's it. And maybe that's the case for a lot of America, but for here it's like hyper... It's a hyper statistic. I don't know what the word is, but it's like, that's it. It's like defined. You're either warehouse, full-time, grunt, forklift, or part-time, 10 hours a week, retail or fast food, or high-level tech, or high-level management. Those are like your 4 options. If you don't have that, you're not finding a fucking job here. And let me talk about the entry-level positions here. Let me just talk about that for a minute. And you don't have to believe me. Go on Indeed and just type in Mesa, Arizona, or Tempe, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, and then type in warehouse worker, warehouse associate, warehouse. You're going to find things for like General Electric and these way something aviation and this, that, and the next. And they're going to say that it pays $17 an hour and it's full time. But they want 5 years experience. They want you to have experience in inventory control and quality assessment. They want you to have associate's degrees for entry-level positions. And they want you to have, in the case of these aviation places and like General Electric, direct experience working with these products. So like direct aviation experience. And what I mean by that is not flying planes. I mean like working with the parts. And if you go on to these jobs, it'll literally say that. Like, do not apply if you don't have prior experience working. It's like, okay, well, how the fuck do I get... This is the entry-level position. How the fuck am I supposed to get aviation experience besides getting this entry-level position? It's like, well, you just apply and then they get back to you. Nobody gets back to you in Arizona. I have applied to almost every opening in Arizona. Like, I mean, not Flagstaff and not Tucson. But I'm talking Casa Grande, Tempe, Phoenix, Tolson, Mesa, Queens Creek, Chandler, fucking Apache Junction, you know, Gilbert, everything. Goodyear. I think Avondale. Is that a city? I can't remember. I always forget about that one. It's basically Goodyear. Anyway, Buckeye. Here's the thing. A Buc-ee's, speaking of Buck something, Buc-ee's just opened up in, I think it's like opening up this week or something, or today, I don't know. Buc-ee's, this big Arizona event, is a Buc-ee's is opening, right? I applied to them a year and a half ago for every position. I mean, from leadership down to entry level. And I went on yesterday because I saw on my feed that Buc-ee's was opening. I went yesterday to look at my apps and they're all still just on received. They've already hired everybody for those positions, but they just didn't even close them out. They didn't notify me. They didn't tell me shit. That's the reality of trying to get a job in Arizona. I mean, it's probably the reality of getting a job anywhere, right? But it's so bad here because you're paying California rent prices and making Arizona wages. Think about that for a second. Some of these jobs in Arizona still pay like $14 an hour. Okay? You're paying, like, I went to In-N-Out and did an interview. And I was so desperate for work, I was just going to do, like, literally janitoring. The guy in the interview, I got to tell you about this. This is fucking insane. The guy in the interview, I handed my resume. And I'm not, like, trying to be egotistical. My resume is decent for a 30-year-old guy like me, okay? I have loss prevention manager experience. I have basically HR. It's like training manager experience, retail supervisor experience, etc. Right? Like, and I have certifications. I have a wide berth of experience. I hand him this resume, and the guy is a little bit older than me. I want to say in his mid-30s, who's interviewing me. And he's been there since he was a teenager, and he's still like, only one level above where he was. And some people live their whole life like that. That's fine. I'm not shitting on him for that. What I'm going to shit on him is for this interview, okay? He asks me, so he's like, tell me about yourself. And I tell him like, I give him a little personal information about my hobbies, and I tell him about my background with education and then my background with work, like very briefly, like a kind of rehearsed speech that I do. And I'm in the In-N-Out Burger, by the way, in Chandler. For people who've lived in Chandler, you've probably been in this In-N-Out Burger. And I did an interview in there while they were working, okay? And we sat at a table while family was eating right behind us, and I'm doing a fucking interview. And this is the funniest thing. So I'm telling him about this, and he's like, oh, you got loss prevention? So, like, have you ever worked fast food? I'm like, yeah, my first job was at Del Taco. I worked at a Del Taco in San Jacinto, California. I was there for about 7 months, and then I left so I could get my education because they were calling me while I was at school. And I told them I couldn't be there, and they kept calling me. And then this guy looks at me, and he says, what'd you do there? And I'm like, okay, well, I was a drive-through cashier, but I also had to cook and do dishes and clean. Oh, you cleaned? Yeah, I cleaned. Tell me about that. I'm like, tell you about what? Like, what did you clean? I'm like, everything. I wiped counters down. I mopped. You mopped? The guy sitting behind us, I hear him go, laughing. He's like, trying to cover up his laugh. He's sitting there eating with his, like, daughters or something. His, like, 10-year-old daughters or 5-year-old daughters or whatever they were. I didn't pay attention to them, obviously. But I heard the guy fucking stifle a laugh. And he's like, tell me about that. I'm like, what, the mopping? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, pretty standard stuff. Same thing you do at any business with a mop. You have one of those mop buckets that can clamp your mop. And we had a specific little, like, walk-in shower that had the different chemicals. And we would fill up the bucket, and then I would mop. And he's like, tell me, how did you mop? I'm like, nigga, please tell me this isn't real. And so I told him, like, you. I'm fucking jester maxing at an In-N-Out Burger. I'm fucking, I fucking mop back and forth, and then I swivel back, and then the guy offered me, like, fucking, I think the pay was good. It was like 18 an hour, but it was 4-hour shifts twice a week on Saturday and Sunday. I'd go in at 5 in the morning on Saturday and Sunday, and I'd be there for 4 hours. I'm like, you got to do better than that. You got to give me 8-hour shifts, or you got to give me, like, more days out of the week. If I'm not getting 20 hours, like, what the fuck is the point of me even going into work? And so the store manager was there, but he didn't want to interview me until the next day. And he's like, come back tomorrow and I'll interview you. And I'm like, no. Anyway, that's like what the retails are. So In-N-Out pays a little more, but a lot of these places, they're only paying $14. And they're going to offer you the same shit. So we've gone over two very important things about Arizona. The real estate is it's not as bad as California, right? The houses are much cheaper than California. But you got to understand the wages here are way less than California too. The rent is about the same though. Renting an apartment here is about the same as renting an apartment in Southern California where I used to live. So that's not cheaper anymore. Okay? Buying a house is still a little cheaper, but renting is not cheaper. Then we've talked about the job market. Job market, not so great. It's good for certain people with very certain skills. Or the job market is good if you're living with a bunch of people. Or if you live with your parents. But if you're somebody who has to take care of a family, or you have to take care of yourself, like me, if you look at any of my last videos, you'll see that these bookshelves and the tops of them were full. Or they were fuller. And every video I've made, less and less shit. Because I'm selling everything I own to pay my bills. And by the, eventually within like a month from now, I don't know if I'll be uploading an older video in a month, but like, this shit will be gone. More of my shit will be gone. Anything that can be sold will be gone. Anyway, it's not affordable. That's the long story. Jobs suck. Affordability sucks. And if you're wondering why I'm looking over here, it's like my video, my screen's over there. Let's go to the next point of contention, okay? Let's just talk politics for a little bit. You obviously know what my politics are, okay? I feel like wearing this hat, I immediately repel women. I wore this hat and like this titty anime shirt out with my family when they were out here months ago. And this is when I weighed like 260 or something, 265. Now I'm like 232, which is nice. But I wore an anime shirt and this hat because my sister bought me this hat for Christmas and then gave it to me months ago when she came out to visit. And I wore it in public, and I swear to God, women wouldn't even look me in the eye. They wouldn't look anywhere in my direction. They were literally like avoiding eyesight. It's awesome. It's kind of fucking awesome. Because when I wear, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm super attractive, but I am tall. I'm 6'3", and I have broad shoulders. I know it doesn't look it. I look like shit right now because I'm dressed like shit and I'm sitting in my fucking gamer chair in my weed bedroom. But if I wear like a nice dress shirt and I put my cowboy hat on, I get compliments. I'm not going to be like, oh, people are like trying to suck my cock. No, but I get compliments, typically from older people. Older women love me. Older women think I'm the shit. All right. Old women, they fucking gilfs fucking love me. Because I'm just a traditional white guy. I look like a traditional white guy. Because I am. Like 95% of my DNA is like... I think I'm like half... Like my grandma's side of the family, my mom's side of the family, is pure Scot. They're pure Scottish. And then my dad's side of the family is pure Irish almost. Well, they're also, I guess, Slavic. God, my hair looks like shit under this. Yeah, I got the Norwood Reaper up here. Anyway. But I'm like... I got like... I don't know if it's called Norse. What is it? Slavic, I guess, or... It's not Slavic. It's like... Whatever it is. Viking DNA, as they say. I got like a little bit of that, but I'm mostly like Scottish and Irish. So I just look like... If I wasn't such a weeaboo faggot... and gamer loser, like my ancestors would be like, dude, this is him. This is like our descendant. You know what I mean? So I can be attractive when I want to be. Like when I lose weight and I take care of myself. I can be decently attractive. I could be instead of being sub 5 human toad, I could be like sub 6, which is pretty good. So, that being said, this repels women. I went on such a tangent, I don't even remember where I was going. Politics. Right. You guys know my politics. So, when we talk about politics here in Arizona, Arizona's a weird state because they have decent, I want to say really good gun laws, okay? They're not the best. I don't know if there's anywhere better in America, but I know they're not the best, right? You can't concealed carry without getting a permit. Which means you can't leave a gun in your car for defense unless you go and get that concealed carry permit. As far as I'm aware. I'm not that informed about gun law, but I believe when I was looking it up, it said something like that. Like, I can't concealed carry without a concealed carry permit, okay? You can go and buy a gun, though, and you can walk out same day. They do background checks virtually, and you can walk out same day. I've sold guns when I worked at Walmart, and you just walk out with your gun. In the case of Walmart, we had to walk them out because we don't want them walking around with a gun in the store. But, point being, you can go buy a gun right now. I can go buy a gun. I can go to Bass Pro Shop if I had money, and I was thinking about just like selling a bunch of my shit as much as possible and then just going and buying a gun to have one. But you can go buy one, okay? That's cool. You can have a gun, you can have it in your house, you can use it for self-defense. You can't concealed carry, which is gay. You have to go buy a permit and take this gay-ass class. But I guess that's cool for people like me who have like no experience with guns. That's, I guess, kind of cool. I wish it was free though. Anyway, that's like a right-leaning. You would think Arizona's right-leaning when you hear something like that. Good gun laws. That's the only thing in Arizona that's right-leaning. Okay? Everything else about Arizona is like hyper-liberal. Hyper-liberal. Okay? And what I mean by that, I don't just mean liberalism is bad. I mean the worst parts of liberalism. The worst parts. The stuff nobody likes. Sane liberals don't like this stuff. That's Arizona. Because Arizona is a college state. ASU is infamous. Like the clavicular guy was talking about ASU frat leader mogging him or whatever, right? ASU's a party college. Everyone who goes there is like a slut or like a fucking giant rich douchebag or an immigrant. Like it's dominated by H-1Bs and immigrants. We'll get into that. We'll get into immigration, but it's dominated by that. The immigration here is fucking abysmal. And I guess instead of making that its own segment, I'll just talk about it here. Might as well. This state, and I pulled up some stats before I started this video for you. Okay? Oh, I might have closed it out. Let me see. Please tell me I didn't close it out. Oh, that's so gay. Oh, I did close it. No. Let me see history. Here we go. Arizona. This is the Google AI. So how trustworthy is that? Not very trustworthy. Here we go. Does this have a link? MigrateMate.co. So this is a pro-migration website. Concentrated in Phoenix Metro. Oh, and they just have a bunch of jobs you can apply to for H-1Bs. That's crazy. Anyway, the stats that you can pull up when you Google search this. It's a little bit less than I thought it was. Granted. It says it's a major hub for H-1B sponsorship. With over 113,000 total H-1B visas on record. The state's most active industries include technology, semiconductors, financial services, healthcare, driven by major employers like Intel, TSMC, American Express, Banner Health, and then it says Intel again because it's retarded. The average H-1B salary is $81,666. Though ZipRecruiter lists average salaries at $156,000. And the average salary of a white person in Arizona is $40,000, I'd bet. Because it's like $14 a fucking hour here. Top occupations include software developers, computer systems analysts, defense, aerospace, university affiliated, semiconductors, finance services, data science, engineering. These are all the jobs I've told you about earlier. So if you're paying attention, and you've made it this far in the video because I've been rambling a while, what you take away from this is that this industry in this state is not for American workers. It is not for you. You are not supposed to be here. I am not supposed to be here. They don't fucking want me in this state. They want Pajeets from fucking India and Muslims and whoever the fuck else with their fake degrees to come over here and run these AI data centers. They don't want to hire Americans. They want to hire indentured serfs that they can fucking get rid of and deport the moment they don't like them. That's what they want. Because if they hired Americans, they'd have to pay Americans this much money. And if Americans had spending power, they wouldn't be spending their money on goy slop, would they? They wouldn't be buying seed oil infused tortillas. I found that out. Everything in our fucking food, if you go around and you just look at the labels, this is a side tangent. If you just go look at the fucking labels on our food, everything has soy and fucking sunflower oil and seed oil. Even shit that has no business having it. How do you make a tortilla? Flour and egg, right? Something like that, you would guess, right? You mix dough, you make dough and you roll it, and then you put it on a grill, right? Or you heat it up. That's how you make bread, right? You just mix the dough? No. What's that? It's like some TikTok guy? No. When he does like the English language. That's not how you make tortillas. You forgot the soy, Goyam. You forgot the soy. You forgot the sunflower oil. If we had spending power... God, it's so hot wearing this hat. I'm probably not going to do this for the next video. I'm probably not going to wear a hat for the next video. Maybe I'll put my cowboy hat because it sits like this. Anyway. If we had spending power, it'd be a lot different. This country would be a lot different. If white people and if American people in general, like real American people, they could be black, they could be brown, but real Americans, okay? People have been here, their families have been here a long time. If they had spending power, they wouldn't be subservient to the goy slop. They wouldn't be forced to work wagey jobs. They wouldn't be getting replaced by H-1Bs. And that's the point, is to get rid of everybody. Anyway, back to Arizona. Now that we're done with that tangent, back to Arizona. So, the politics. We talked about immigration. This stuff is obvious. If you're paying attention, you know that importing, even whether they're legal or illegal, okay, I'm sure the amount of illegals in this state from Mexico, the Mexican border, is way higher than the H-1Bs. The reason I point out the H-1Bs is because this is the shit that the Republican administration is perfectly okay with. They're perfectly okay with letting in third world people who shit in the streets as long as they come in legally and take all of the high-paying tech jobs. Because, as Trump said, we're too stupid to do tech. I'm too stupid. I didn't go to the fake-ass Indian college, so I must be too stupid. So immigration is a problem. Let's talk about the governor. Let's talk about the mayors. Let's talk about the competing parties. We don't even have to just talk about Katie Hobbs, right? If you live in Arizona and you like Katie Hobbs, I think you should actually get a rope. Not in Minecraft. In real life, get a rope and find a nice desert canyon to jump off of. That's what I think you should do. If you think... And you know, I'm going to be honest. It's not just Katie Hobbs. It's not just the Democratic Party here. Do you know who's in charge of, like, if you go look at the signs you drive around, and I was seeing them for a while, I don't know if they're still there. Might be a different election now. All of the Republican candidates, who are they? Turning Point USA sponsored candidates. Do you think anybody who's a Turning Point USA sponsored candidate gives a fuck about Arizona? Do you think they give a fuck about America? Turning Point USA, these are your Republican candidates? Even maybe if Charlie Kirk were alive and, you know, he was hella Israel first, okay? But that guy had a little bit of honor. He at least had... I feel like at the end of the day, Israel was not Charlie Kirk's first concern. He was a fervent defender of it, but it wasn't his whole life. He did love America. I genuinely believe that. Do you think Erica Kirk loves America? Erica Kirk's dating a black guy now, dude. She didn't even wait like a year to after her husband died to start dating a black guy. These people don't care about America. These are going to be all Israel first, Turning Point Republican candidates who are pro-Iran war, pro-Israel, anti-American, anti-white people, anti-black people. They're going to be anti-everything. They're only pro-Jewish. So, Turning Point and the Republican Party, all of the candidates here are like, they're that, or there's like a guy I think who's running, he might be running for governor, I'm not sure, maybe it's some bigwig in Mesa specifically. I see his billboards everywhere. It's like an Indian guy, his name's like Zulamoon or something. That's probably hella racist. I have no idea what his name is. It's something with a Z and it's like impronounceable. It's literally fucking impronounceable to white people. We look at that and we're like, this is... At first I was driving with my dad and we saw that and I'm like, is this guy Jewish or Persian? I'm like, his name looks Jewish, but he's very clearly Middle Eastern, like an actual Semite, not like a Jewish Semite. He's like like an Ashkenazi Jew. He's like an actual Semitic person from the Middle East. He's like, that certain color of brown. And he's like, no, he's not Jewish. He's whatever. I would never vote for him. And I'm like, oh, that's because you're a boomer. You're only going to vote for the Jewish candidate. So anyway, that's where we left off with politics. We have the Democratic Party, which obviously the Liberal Party they're anti-white. They're anti-America. They're pro-communism, pro-immigration, pro-everything. They're pure evil. Okay? Everyone who knows the Democratic Party and actually knows, like, consciously what they do, they know that the only people who should like Democratic parties are, like, brown people and black people. Because that's the only people they care about. They don't care about anyone who's not brown or black. Okay? So, that's the Democratic Party. And I think even then, they're just trying to make you guys better slaves, If you're like a brown or black person, I think they're just trying to enslave you in a different way. The Republican Party is the same thing, really. They're anti-white, they're anti-nationalist, they're anti-freedom, but they're also anti-black, anti-brown, anti-white. They only like Jews. So you either choose the minorities, the brown people, or you choose the Jews. That's your choice in Arizona. Those are your choice of parties. So politically, unless you're a Democrat and you love immigrants and you love being poor and you love not having a job, you love being on welfare, if you love being a jobless NEET with no prospect for your future, and you love high crime, like high crime rates, you love the danger of living in Arizona, You love the fact that all of the Mexican food here is fake. It's not even real Mexican food. Like, maybe if you go to Tucson, you'll get real Mexican, but not here in Mesa or Phoenix or any of that. None of it's real ethnic food. It's all fake, and it's all hipster. So if you love fake ethnic food, being broke, being jobless, getting killed by ethnic minorities, and being replaced by H-1B visas, and never being able to afford a home, and working less than minimum wage for the rest of your life, come to Arizona. If that's what you love, come here to Arizona. If you're born and raised here, then, you know, I understand if you want to stay and fix it. But for somebody like me, who was born and raised in California and tried to get out and come here, holy shit. And maybe too many people came from California. I know I hear that complaint a lot. Too many of you guys from California came here and fucked it up for everybody. Shut up, dude. You guys let it happen. You guys let the companies, let Blackstone buy all your real estate. You guys let all the H-1Bs come into your country. You guys voted Katie Hobbs. You let it happen. All the college kids who moved to come stay at ASU, they don't get to vote unless they live there for 9 months. And you don't live there for 9 months when you go to college. You live there for like 4 months at a time, and then you go back home. So it doesn't happen. The people who are coming to the colleges, unless they're planning to stay here long term, they're not staying here long term, and they're not voting in Arizona. They're making a big fuss about shit at the college campuses, but they're not voting here. They're not allowed to. It's you guys, the Arizona natives, who fucked it up, and you guys have to fix it. No one else can fix it for you. Okay? But for us, people who are looking for an out, I think the point of this video is there is no out. There's nowhere you can go. You can't go to Texas. You can't go to Arizona. And, you know, I was recently looking at Utah. I'm like, dude, I have a friend who moved there. I have a friend who moved to Utah. And, you know, his family's like Mormon, and he never really was. And he goes there, and he's just getting pussy all day. He's getting pussy now. Because, you know, he moved from, like, Northern California over to here. Now, all of a sudden, all these women want him. Because the market's so different in Utah. And they're all Mormons, right? They're all repressed. So they're looking for, like, a guy who's just willing to fuck them. Because women are hoes. And he goes there, and he's just having a great time. And, you know, they're all drinking soda pop. Well, they don't drink soda pop. They drink soda there. And it's like predominantly white where he's at. I think he's somewhere near like the Zion National Park, like southernish area of Utah. And he's loving it, and I'm like, dude, I gotta get in on that. I want to go to what's that guy's name? Arval? Is that his name? The white neighborhood that they made. I want to go to the white neighborhood. I want to go. I want to be Amish. Dude, you're cooked. You can't escape there. They will come after us. That's why I think it's more respectable for people, if this is like your native hometown, to just defend it, you know? I don't agree with, you know, despite wearing the hat, I don't agree with Nick Fuentes on everything. I just like the idea of America first, okay? I don't agree with that guy on everything. But one of the points he does make that's important, I think, that feels like it's not a grift, is that when he talks about why do you live in Chicago, and then he explains why he lives there, and it's like, this is my home, this is America, I want this place to be good again. I agree with that sentiment. People should want to make their hometown livable. But if you're like me and you're a drifter and you have no fucking hometown and you have no family who gives a shit about you really, and no friends, then, you know, you just always look for the next escape. And then eventually you probably become a passport bro, right? Like a lot of the guys like me become passport bros, and they go to fucking Asia and get themselves an Asian wife, right? Maybe that's my play. Once I sell all my shit, I'll go to Seoul, Korea or something, you know, fucking get me a Korean wife. God, look at how bad my hair is. It gets worse when I wear a hat. You know, I can fake it, I can fake having the hair if I angle it right. But you see that line? Brutal. It's over for me. I started wearing hats because I started balding. That's what happens when you hit 30. It doesn't matter, dude. Eventually, I'm just going to have to shave it. I got to stop the cope. But for now, I'm like, no, dude. If I just touch it all day, if I do it like this all day, if I keep adjusting it all day, it almost looks like I don't have a bald spot. If I just keep messing with it all day. That's cope, obviously. It's so obvious. I had it back when I was 26, 4 years ago, while I was working at Amazon, and this guy was talking to a girl, and one of my employees who was like late 30s, and she was like, how old do you think I am? And it's like this 19-year-old black kid, and he's like, I don't know, 25. And she's like, aw, you're so sweet. And I said, hey kid, how old do you think I am? He's like, I don't know, you balding 40? I was just like, I literally, I mean, I wasn't like that, but my response, I literally just said, damn. I just said, damn. I'm 40 now. I had to own, when you're balding, you just have to own it, dude. You can't cope. You can't cope with it. You can't cope. You can't get the wig. You can't, dude. You have to, I mean, you had it up and pretend, or you just shave it. Or you walk around and you just don't give a fuck. Like I do. I'll walk around with it like this, terrible, all day. I'll walk around and look terrible all day. I just don't care. But the moment you care, the moment you start... Dude, my dad, he's 66 now. He puts the makeup. Have you seen that shit? The makeup in their hair? Dude, if you put the makeup on your head to cover up your bald spot, you're fucked, dude. Just give up. God. It looks so bad. Look at that. Anyway, looks kind of better now. A little bit. I can angle it just right and cope. Anyway, that's the video. Arizona sucks. Long story short, Arizona's a piece of shit state. Don't move here. If you're looking to escape your situation, you have the wrong mindset. Don't move to Arizona. Don't move to Texas. Maybe don't move to Utah. If you don't have somebody who lives there who can support you, don't move there. It's so unaffordable to move. I ruined my life. I ruined my life moving here in January 2024. I financially ruined my life. So don't move here. Learn that. At least learn this from my example of what not to do. Don't move here and think you're just going to get a job. Don't move here and think there's going to be all this work. If you're going to move here, prep. Have a lot of money to move. Have a job lined up that's full-time, consistent, that you don't think you're going to leave in a year. Because if you leave, like I left Walmart after 9 months, it's been a year and a half since I left them, and it's been fucking impossible to find work for me. Because I'm basically blacklisted at like Walmart, Target, Penske. Like these places will not rehire me for years. Because I left. So keep that in mind. Alright. If you got this far, thank you for watching the video. I'm not really going to ask you to subscribe or anything. I just make these for me. And then if you watch them, cool. Feel free to leave a comment. I'll reply.